It was the summer of 2000. Russia was preparing for one of the largest naval exercises of the decade, a massive display meant to remind the world that its navy was a force to be taken seriously. At the center of the spectacle stood the Kursk K-141, a giant of steel and reactors born in the legendary Submarine shipyard, an Oscar II-class behemoth and a part of the Project 949A, the anti-class. She was built in the shadows of Cold War rivalry and designed under the vision of Admiral Sergei Gorskov, the father of the modern Soviet Navy. These submarines were created for one purpose: to challenge American power beneath the waves. Kursk wasn't just another submarine, she was the pride of the fleet, the heart of this entire exercise, a vessel engineered not only to fight a war but to walk away from one. Newly elected President Vladimir Putin wanted the entire world to witness Russia's strength at the sea, so a crew of 118 sailors was handpicked for this mission, including some of the finest men Russian Navy had ever trained. For them, this wasn't just another deployment, it was a dream, a badge of honor, and a chance to prove themselves in the Russian Navy. They clicked photos and bid farewell to their families before the mission, none of them realizing that this could be their very last mission. The Barents Sea was calm on the morning of the tragic day. As the world watched from a distance, the 118 men on board prepared for what should have been a flawless exercise. Among the crew on board was Lieutenant Dmitry Kolesnikov, a disciplined officer in his mid-30s. To him, Kursk wasn't just a steel and machinery, it was a home, a place he had given years of his life to and had never once questioned. That day, as he stepped away from the station, he moved through the vessel's heart, the control room, the torpedo bays, and the long narrow passageways. And every time he walked through these corridors, the scale of the submarine struck him anew. And he was not wrong, as the Kursk was massive. She was double-hulled and able to withstand crushing pressures, a fortress designed to survive the unthinkable. And inside that armored shell lay 9 sealed compartments. At 154 meters long, nearly the length of 2 Boeing 747s placed nose to tail, the Kursk was a giant of the deep. Weighing over 18,000 tons and driven by twin nuclear reactors producing nearly 1900,000 megawatts of power, she was a machine not just for war, but for dominance. As Kolesnikov made his way back to prepare for the torpedo launch drill, the entire submarine was suddenly shaken under a violent explosion. Immediately the lights snapped out and the Kursk was thrown into a darkness. He pushed towards the 9th compartment, for which he felt to be the safest place on the submarine, when a second, far more powerful explosion tore through the hull. The shock drove the Kursk straight to the seafloor. Inside the 9th compartment, the survivors had gathered in pitch black darkness. The temperatures fell and the oxygen thinned, and every minute grew heavier than the last. Knowing that time was slipping away, Lieutenant Dmitry Kolesnikov took out a pen, wrote down the following final words. The note he left behind read, "All the crew from 6th, 7th and 8th compartments went over to the 9th. There are 23 people here. We feel bad, weakened by the effects of carbon monoxide from the fire. The pressure is increasing in the compartment. None of us can get to the surface. Don't despair." And everything went dark for the 118 men inside the Kursk forever. On the surface, everything appeared to be normal. The Kursk had missed some communication checks. Still, nothing seemed to be unusual. Torpedo firing drills often require strict radio silences. At 11:28 a.m., seismic stations in Norway and Russia recorded a small underwater shock. 2 minutes later, the sensors picked up a second explosion, but it was massive, violent, equivalent to several tons of TNT. It rippled across the seabed and echoed through the Barents Sea. Yet with no distress signals, no debris, or unusual surface activities, and the emergency buoy, which was supposed to signal a disaster, not appearing from the Kursk, Russia was sure that everything was fine with the Kursk. Hours passed, and by late afternoon on August 12th, Kursk had missed every scheduled communication window. A submarine this reliable could not have simply gone quiet, so a fleet-wide alert was issued. Surface ships swept the area with sonar, searching for any signs of movement or life. In Moscow, the situation worsened. Families of the crew gathered, demanding answers. The Kremlin, unprepared for a national crisis, insisted publicly that the crew was fine and Kursk was experiencing only minor technical difficulties. Soon after, a decisive sonar reader came through which stated that a steel hull was resting on the seabed. Finally, the Kursk had been found at a depth of 108 meters. NATO and the United States immediately offered advanced rescue assistances, but Russia refused. Secrecy, pride, and the desire to protect the classified submarine technology outweighed the shrinking window of survival. The first rescue attempt began the next morning using praise Russia's deep submergence rescue vehicle. It struggled immediately. Rough seas battered the small craft, its batteries drained rapidly. Each attempt to lock onto Kursk's escape hatch failed. The rescue team aborted this mission. A second attempt failed, then a third. With every passing hour, hope slipped further away while the truth lay silent on the cold floor of the Barents Sea. After 4 days had passed since the explosion was first recorded, Russia finally had no choice but to accept outside help. Public pressure was boiling. Foreign intelligence agencies had openly confirmed the blast signatures, and the official line of minor technical difficulties was no longer relevant. But even in accepting assistance, Moscow imposed strict conditions. Only Russian divers could enter the submarine. Foreign teams were allowed to approach, advise, and operate the equipment, but no one could step inside the Kursk. Secrecy still outweighed transparency. With this term said, the international operations finally began. 20 specialists arrived with the LR-5 rescue submersible, while Norwegian naval divers prepared to handle deep water docking operations. Their equipment was newer, faster, and far more reliable than Russia's aging press fleet. The Barents Sea had finally calmed down after days of rough weather and offered the first real chance at reaching the submarine. On August 28th, the Norwegian team descended. The water was black and near freezing as they located the escape hatch of the Kursk. The hull was warped, scorched, and twisted, a clear evidence of the violent internal blast. The divers carefully cleared the debris, then attempted the most crucial step, checking for any signs of the surviving crew. They knocked onto the steel hatch, listened, knocked again, but nothing. When they opened the hatch, they found what the world had feared the most. All the men inside were gone. In the weeks after the disaster, the Russian government released its official conclusion. It stated that the first explosion aboard the Kursk was caused by a leak and detonation of a Type 65 torpedo, fueled by high-test peroxide (H2P). The second, much larger explosion came when the fire triggered the warheads of additional torpedoes stored in the forward compartment. The government stated that all the 118 sailors were killed instantly or within minutes, and that no rescue attempt, be it foreign or domestic, could have saved them. This remained the official position of the Russian Federation. However, that was changed when the curse was raised in October of 2000 and the note written by Kolesnikov was found. Many theories were raised, like collision with a foreign submarine, or a malfunction during a secret torpedo test, a catastrophic chain reaction from aging weaponries, or even to a terrorist attack. In the end, no theory, official or otherwise, changes the outcome. The Kursk now rests in history as one of the worst peacetime naval disasters ever recorded. The sailors aboard never resurfaced, and the full truth of what happened in those final moments may never be known. What is certain is that for days after the explosions, hope slowly faded across the Barents Sea, eroded by silence, secrecy, and the unforgiving depths. And even now, decades later, The final moments of the Kursk remain locked behind steel, politics, and cold waters of the Arctic, a tragedy unanswered and unforgettable.